Well, good evening and welcome. My name is Will Gearing, and this is a tutorial on the program that you have hopefully downloaded called Your Personal Budget. Maybe from the outset I just need to say that I am not a professional video person, so the idea of this video is not to give you something slick and professional, but it is certainly to get you up and running with your budget. So bear with me if we have the odd little glitch, or if you hear the odd background noise that shouldn't be there. It might be a clock that chimes or something like that. But yeah, I think the main reason for this video is for you to get your budget set up and to get it going. And I'm absolutely certain that once you start to use this, it will make a big difference in your life. You'll be able to start genuinely saving some money if you don't already, and you will also be able to pay off any debts that you have. It'll certainly make your life a lot easier. So before we actually get into the actual workings on the budget, a couple of assumptions that we need to make, or some actions that you need to take before we start it, because this is how the budget works around this basis. One is that you need a bank account, which I think is pretty obvious. The second thing is you need a second account for your savings. Now, most banks will link a savings account to your main account. If you can't do that, then have a second separate account. It doesn't work to have everything in one account. And the way the budget, this program is structured, is that you have two accounts. It would be an advantage if you have a debit card on both those accounts, but it's not a train smash if you don't. You can always transfer money from your savings into your main account and vice versa. So if you can, that's great. If you can't, it's not the end of the world. One thing we also do suggest is that you do not use a credit card. Your debit card really does exactly the same as a credit card from a convenience point of view, and you're only spending money that you actually have in the bank to spend. If you do have a credit card at the moment and you owe money in it, I suggest you stop using it, even destroy it if you can, and just to make sure you don't use it, and make one of those items in your budget the loan to pay off what you owe on your credit card. The interest that gets charged on a credit card is probably the highest interest that any financial institution will charge you, and it's just not worth having to pay that sort of interest every month. Okay, so let's get into the actual budget and how it works. If you open up your spreadsheet, you will see you have some tabs at the bottom here. There are 5 tabs. The first one is called month 1, and that's the tab you can see here. That's mainly where all your day-to-day transactions will take place, and we're getting into that a little bit later, how it all works. The second tab is your main bank account. The third one, what we call budget categories, is where you do most of the setup of your budget. And then we have a savings tab, which is all your different savings. It's your savings account, which is this tab here, and then it's split up into different categories. So in your savings, you're obviously not just going to have savings for one thing. You're going to have savings for different types of things. For instance, your motor vehicle license, which is paid once a year, vehicle maintenance, clothing, things like that, which you don't spend exactly the same amount each month, but we will get to that now. So that will be shown in that account there. And then we have a couple of blank sheets here, which are just for your personal use if you want to track something like a car repayment or something like that. So let's get started with it. So call this step 1 if you like. But the first thing you need to do, and that stays on this month 1 page, it's the only thing we're going to do on this page for now, but it's your income. So there are 10 different categories here for your income. So you might have different sources of income that come into your bank account each month. So that's what we need to put here. You might just have one. It might just be your salary, and that's the end of it. And whatever that amount is, you would put here. So let's start off by just giving some examples, and I'm really going to put some very rounded off figures here just to make life easy, just to show you how it works. So this one we're going to put in 10,000. That's a salary, and you might be married, or you might have a partner, and you want to do a joint budget. So you can put maybe your wife there, and she doesn't work as much as you do, so she doesn't get quite as much. So just put in something for her. And then maybe you've got a hobby that brings in, you do some sales from whatever, making some woodwork or something like that. Let's just say that brings in 1,000 a month. So that is your income. And very importantly, this income is the money that actually goes into your bank account. So it's what your salary will pay you, what you draw from your business, whatever it is. It's the actual amount that goes into your account after you've paid your taxes, after you've paid things like medical aid, if you do have that, provident funds, that type of thing. So it's the actual cash that goes into your bank account. So what happens in the end here is that, as you can see down here, we have a total income of 16,000. Now we don't want to spend more than that each month, otherwise there's no point in having a budget, and there's no point in we're just going to go down a rocky road, because you cannot spend more than what is coming in. It can only lead to disaster, and hence the reason why I think you're probably having one of these budgets anyway. So that is the idea here, is that our income does not exceed our expenses. Okay, so we finished on that page now. We've put in the income, and now we go to the budget categories, and this is where your budget is set up. As you can see on this page, don't worry about any other figures here, but there is total monthly income. You can see that's what we put in, and that's what's showing down here at the bottom. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here, and there are two sections that we need to do. There's this section here, and there's this section here. So the first section we want to complete is our annual savings. Now we call it annual savings because these are amounts that you want to put away during the course of the year, and often they are for amounts that become due on an annual basis. Now that's not strictly the case for all of these things, but if you put in, for example, the one thing that you could put in here is your vehicle maintenance, if you own a motor car, and that is something that you will not be spending the exact same amount every month, but every few months, or depending how much you drive, you will need to maintain or service your motor car or put tires on it or whatever it is. So we can allocate something into that account each month. Something like a vehicle license, that is something that becomes due every year. So if we put a license in there, and we just, for ease of calculation, let's say that cost 144 a year. So 144 divided by 12, because we need to put every month in, we just put in amount of that, so that when the year is up, we have enough to pay for that license. Then you might have something like a clothing, and you can name these differently. You can name clothing and Mike and clothing and Sue if your wife, or if it's more than one of you, but we're just going to assume there's one of you on this one. So we're going to put in 300 for clothing. And then there are other things, like if you own animals, you need to put in an amount to pay the vet when injections become due, or your animal gets sick. It's nothing worse than having absolutely nothing to fall back on when those sort of things happen. Another thing is birthday presents. They don't come, it's not the same every single month. So, and I'm just giving you suggestions here, and these are taken off this list here, which is a suggestion list that we give you. You don't have to use these. You might have others that we haven't put in here that you want to put in there. It's really up to you. These are just some suggestions for you to use. So we put an amount for that. Another thing that we might want to put in here is Christmas, because at the end of the year you're buying presents, or you spend a little bit more money than you would normally do, so you put something in for that. And then just to round it off, and again, please, this is just something you can put in what you want here. But this is something that I really suggest you have, is an emergency fund, okay? Because things go wrong. Your fridge suddenly packs up, or you suddenly need a new iron, or whatever it is. It might not be a household thing, it might be something else. It's really, really nice to have a fund that is sitting there for these type of things, and it feels really good that you can go to that fund and say, right, I can pay for this out of cash, and I've got the money saved. And this amounts up, and it adds up quite quickly. So put an amount in there. As I say, we're just going to put arbitrary amounts in here, and I'm putting that just so that we can round things up. But you would go on here and fill this in for anything that is similar to what we've put in here. In other words, things that you don't spend the exact same amount every month and you want to put into a savings account, which you can then withdraw out of as you need these amounts. So there we have a total of 1,600. Okay. So the first thing every month in your budget is you need to put this 1,600 into a savings account. And there you can see this is our monthly expenses that we're going to populate now. That one automatically comes in from this list here. So that is our first item that we would put away each month on our budget. Then we need to actually look at all our expenses that go through our bank account or cash that we spend. Whatever it takes for us to live each month needs to come in this column. So the first thing we might be doing is paying a bond or a mortgage on a house, and that's normally quite a high amount depending on what sort of house you're living in or what you're paying off. It could be rent, that could be another thing instead of that, so it's something like that. The second thing that you would probably have, and I mean you can again guys, this is up to you, you can put what you like in here, you don't have to take it, again we have a suggested list, you don't have to take it from that, but it is there for you if you want to use it. I'm going to put things, I'm not going to fill this whole thing in, it's more just to show you how it works. You would have an entertainment section for going out and things like that, and then there's another thing that I find very useful is a daily spending, and this is really like your pocket money for the month. Whatever you want to go and buy a cup of coffee, or you want to get a pie for lunch, or whatever it is, that is your personal money that you don't really have to account to anyone for. It's just your spending money for the month, and you still need to track this, obviously. So you put it in here, that's your allowance, and this is how budgets work. At the end of the month, when you've spent all your coffee money and your snack money and there's 3 or 4 days to go, well, toughies, that's it, you've spent it, and that's where you got to use your discipline and say, well, I'll wait a few days for the next month, and then I get topped up again. So that's how it works. Then you get things like electricity, and you might be putting this in with a water account, so you could just call it utilities if it all comes together. If it doesn't, you can separate it. Again, it's very much up to you how you manage this. It shouldn't be 12,000. It should be, oops, done it again. Really, I am doing well there. Okay, then we will have things like insurance. Just rounding these things off. Contribute to some charities, your church or a charity that you contribute to. I would suggest that you also have a category which is just called general. You just don't know. These are little expenses that pop up that you just don't expect to, and you have a place to put them. Could be all sorts of things, but it's just nice to have a general account, because sometimes you don't actually allocate anything for a particular item, and you can just put it under general. You might go to a gym, you might have a cell phone that you pay off, etc, etc. Okay, I think you get the idea. You need to go through here, put all your expenses here, and then what happens is at the end of this list, and look, another way of doing this list is to take your last 2 months bank statements and just go through line by line what has come out of your bank account, and that will also tell you sometimes where expenses are coming every month, and it's often you forget these little things, and that will give you a reminder. And the other thing is, and I'll take this gym as an example, you might be paying off a gym membership and you haven't even used that gym for 6 months, so you might even be able to save some money going through your bank statement. You might find that there's things you're subscribing to, some apps or things that you're just not even using, and you've just forgotten that they are coming off your account every month. So it is a worthwhile exercise to do that as well. So when you've completed this, what happens is it now gives you a total, and it says, right, this is what I have said I need to live off every month. And as you can see here, it's 16,100, but we have an income of 16,000. So we have a problem here because we cannot spend more than what we are earning. So we need to go back now and adjust our budget so that this block down here, or this cell, is green. We need to end up with this being green, and we are over here. So you can't change some things. You can't possibly change maybe your electricity or your water. That is a pretty standard amount that comes through. Your bond, you can't change that. That's what you've committed to pay every month. But you can change something like entertainment or your daily spending, or your general account. You maybe drop that a little bit. So just to make this really simple, we're going to say, okay, we're going to drop that general account by 100, and we end up now with a green square down here. And that is what we need to attain before we move off this page. So once you've done that, that is your budget, and that's how you will use your expenses for the month. If we get the opposite that happens, right, we might end up with a situation like this, where we get a yellow cell down here, and this is what this is telling us, is that we actually are now under our income. So in other words, we have 100 more income than we do expense. Okay, if that is the case, I suggest that we then put it into something like an investment. You say, oh, I've got a bit of extra, let's put it into the investment. Or you can go across to this side where you have your savings and say, all right, that's great, I'm managing to come out fine. I'm going to take that extra 100 and I'm going to put it here into my emergency fund, because my emergency fund is a bit low. So we up our emergency fund here. It does obviously up our monthly savings, and we now get our green cell down here, because this amount here goes up by 100, that goes up by 100, and obviously we now balance down at the bottom. So now what happened is we've balanced the account and everything's looking good. Okay, so before we get on to the monthly, how all this now works during the month, I just want to show you what happens to this savings amount. Okay, so at the beginning of the month, the first thing we do with our income that's coming to our bank account is that we take this 17 and we transfer it from our main account into our savings account. That's the first thing you need to do. Always say pay yourself first, and that's the way to do it. So if we go to our savings account, and I just want to show you how these accounts work, both the main account and the savings account look exactly the same. You can put the name here of the bank and the account number up here. If you have an opening balance, in other words, if you have some savings already, you can put an opening balance here and it'll give you the opening balance of your savings account, and then you can add to it. But you need to allocate this opening balance into different categories. So if you've made those different categories and you have 300 as an opening balance, you can put 100 into each category, and that sorts it out. It goes up. And I'm not saying you don't go back and do that here. You do it in the savings tab, which we're coming to now. But for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to assume that you don't have anything there. We're going to say that this is the month of August, and we just give it a description. It's up to you what you call it. And we putting in, okay, let me just make sure we get this right. I think we said it was 17. Sorry, just give me 1 second. We're just going to look here and see. It was exactly 17. Okay, so we go back to our savings account and we change this to 17. That is now come out of our main account and it's gone into our savings account, so we need to record that. And whenever you do that, if you get paid on the 25th or the 1st, we just put a date in when we actually did that. Okay, so now you can see our savings is sitting at 1700. Then we go now to our savings categories. Now what has happened here is all those things we put in our list in this budget categories, you remember up here, these items here, they've all been transferred into these sections over here. Okay, there you can see them, and there's the amount that we allocated. Now that hasn't put it into our account yet. It's just telling us what our monthly amount is that we are going to save. So the total monthly amount that we want to save, same as what we've just done, is 17. Our account balance is sitting at 17, so that's fine. We've just seen that in our account. But our balance on this page is 0 at the moment, and I'll show you why. Because here is all our income. In other words, all the money that we save and all the money that we withdraw gets put in these different columns. So now for vehicle maintenance, we can say that on the 1st, because that's when it went into the account, we can call it savings for August, and we put in 300. Okay, so now we have a balance. You can see the balance running around here of 300. We do the same thing here. You can copy this across if it's easier, and you can just copy it into each of the different as a heading there. I won't do them all because it just takes time, but you can see what I mean. And here we put in the 12 that we've put in. Okay, there we put the date again, savings August, and here we put 300. And there's our vet. Again, just put a description, the amount that we are putting in, and we allocated 300, and here we allocated 400. This is per month, remember. And then our emergency we allocated 188. Okay, so that's what we allocated. There are a whole lot more here, and those are the balance of those of the list if you want to go and put more items in, but it doesn't make any difference if they're there or not. Okay, then we go back to our current balance, and we see now that we are sitting at the 17, okay, which is correct. So now everything balances and we get a green here. Okay, so now we know that in all these savings accounts, this is what we have. Now I go out on the 3rd of August, and I decide that I need to buy myself a pair of socks. So that needs to come off my clothing savings, and it costs me 50 Rand. So there's my 50 Rand. I need to go and put it in there. I now have a balance left of 250 in that particular category. So each time you spend something in these categories, you go in there and you take it off. If you haven't got it to spend, then you shouldn't be spending it. Okay, and then you go to your savings account, because now we've taken this out of our account, and we've got to put here a description. So socks, you can put my name or whatever it is there. It was on the 3rd, and we've now spent that 50 Rand, as you saw. So that 50 now needs to obviously come off our savings account because it's been taken. Now there are two ways. You can either transfer this 50 into your main account and use your main account card to buy it, or if you have a card on this account, you can use the card here, or you can pay cash, and then just transfer it across to your other account and withdraw the cash, or take it off your cash, and that I'll show you just now. But whatever you do, you need to show that it's come out of this account. And then if you go back to your savings, you will now see that we have our green again, because we have now balanced everything. Don't worry about this one. That's the total amount that's going in each month. It's the current balance of this sheet and the actual account balance. They all balance, and we have a green cell there. And the same thing would happen here. You have a vet account that you need to pay. You can call it whatever you like. Injection cost 100. The 100 comes off. We go to our savings account and we call it the, I don't know, Geddes Vet, whatever the name of the vet is, and 100 came off there. And it was on the 7th of August. So there's our balance, 1550. That's what we have left in our savings. We then go back to our savings here, and we see 1550, 1550, we're all balancing. Now what happens is when the next month comes along, we've spent nothing on vehicle maintenance, so now it's the 1st of the 9th, and again we top up. We now call this savings September, and another 300 goes in here because that's what we're allocating each month. So now in our vehicle maintenance we now have 600 because nothing has been spent there. I'm going to take this out now because we're working in the current month, so I don't want that to confuse you, but that's how it would work. The next month you just go and top these all up with the same amounts that you put up here, and then you transfer that total into this account and it'll all balance. I hope that's making sense to you. Okay, so now that's your savings. I'm quickly going to just go to the bank account before we get into this, the budget categories, just to show you that we need to obviously do exactly what we've just done on our savings account here. So on the 1st of the month, we had those amounts coming in that I said earlier. It was a salary, and then we had your wife. If you recall, we had the salary for your, I think that should be 10,000, not 1,000. There was the partner salary or the wife. This could be the only one, as I said to you, could be just your salary that comes in here. So you can put your, call it whatever you like, and that was 5. And then we had some income coming in from a hobby or whatever else that you might have income coming in from. This does take a little bit to work, a little while to work out. That was the hobby income, selling furniture, whatever you do, and that was our income that came in for the month. If you recall, it was 16,000, and that's shown there. Okay, and then we just pop these in. That all come in on the same date. Okay, then if we go to our budget categories, you remember we allocated all this for the month, so that's what we've got to spend. So now we need to actually go to the workings of this, where it all works on a day-to-day basis. You've now set up your budget, and this is the main part of the setup. Once this is done, then you don't have to go and repeat this every month. Only come back here if you need to make some changes for the next month. Then you can make them here. So now we go to our actual month, and we see here that we have our budget. All our categories have been transferred over to here. We can see our income here. We can see our budget. We can see that it was 16,000 that we need to have for the month in our budget. We can see that we have a bank balance right now of 16,000, which is that money that's gone in, and we have a green cell here, and it says keep this green, so everything there is fine. Now what happens? The first thing we did was we took this monthly savings, you recall, so we need to actually show that. So this little section here is called the spend tracker. So this is where you record all your actual expenses. Every time you buy something, every time you purchase something, every time you use something out of one of these categories, you would track it here. So if we click on that cell there, you will see all these cells have a drop down arrow, and that drop down will have all these items automatically put in here. So there's your annual savings, and if you recall, we transferred it into our savings account, so we just need to put in that amount that we transferred. Now you can put a description, but this is pretty obvious what it is, so I don't think it needs one, but it's up to you. Then if we actually go to the monthly savings, we can see how much we've spent now. There it is, the full amount. What have we got left? Nothing, because we've now transferred that out. Okay, so then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to record that in our main account, because it's been transferred out of this account to our savings. So we can put here, so we know that it was done on the 1st of the 8th. So we remember we need to record all these transactions, and we said that was 17. So here we put minus because it went out of the account, 17. Okay, so that leaves us with a balance of our account of 14.3. If we go back to our month here, we can see there's 14.3. That's what we've got in our account, and our cell goes green because it all balances. Okay, then the next thing we need to do is we need to pay our bond. So again, we go across here. It might be a debit order that goes through the bank, but that's fine. We still got to record it. So we call it our bond, and we say it is 3.5. So that goes. Again, that's been spent. We have nothing left. Now we need to make sure our bank account is showing that. So again, that comes off on the first of the month. And that was minus 3.5. Okay, so this is where you just do these small transactions on a daily basis. You don't, it sounds like a lot because we've covered a lot now, but all you're really doing now is putting in 3 or 4 transactions a day here and recording it on your budget. If you don't want to do it every day, you can do it every 3 days, as long as you're disciplined enough to know that what you've spent in the past 3 days. You can do that by either having a note on your phone or a little notebook that you carry around, or you just keep your receipts in your wallet. So those are the sort of lump sum things that come off here. Then we get an item like groceries. So groceries you're going to spend during the course of the month. So again, you just go to your drop down, you'd find groceries, and just by the way, you can scroll here for some more. If you don't see them all in that block, you can just scroll down. But there's groceries, and we've now gone to the spa and we've spent 100 on groceries. And you can call it, if you want to say that's where we spent it, and there you can see 100, but we still have got 3.9 left, okay, for that account. We then go back to our bank account because we used our card to buy that, and that was 100. If you recall, that's exactly what it was, and we can put it down to groceries, or we can say where it was, whatever you like. Okay, then we decide that we also would like to have a bit of cash. So we're going to make a cash withdrawal here, and we're going to draw out, don't worry about the spelling, we're going to draw out 1,000 in cash. Sorry, make that 1,000. Okay, so now we're sitting with 1,000 in our wallet, but our bank account is down to 97. So if we go back to our month, we have a problem here because we've got 1,000 here. It's showing that we actually down 1,000 in our budget, but here's our little wallet and we have got nothing in it, but we actually have got 1,000. So now we need to put our cash in here. So once our cash goes in there, again you can see we get the green and we're all fine. So the way to do this is at the end of the day, or every couple of days, or the morning, whenever you decide to do this, we put in our expenses. And let's say, for example, that I bought myself a pie and a Coke, and it was on my daily spending account. You recall I said that was like your pocket money account, and that came to 35. And if you want, you can put pie and Coke and your name if you want to, if there's more than one of you who's using the daily spending. But then you would call these daily spendings, as I said to you, Mike and Sue or whatever, you'd call them different names so that you can keep track. You paid cash, so at the end of the day when you come to add up your cash, you're obviously going to have 1,000 and you're going to have less 35. So your cash is going to be now 965, and there we go, we got a green button there, so everything's fine. And this just carries on like that. Okay, so anything else, maybe your gym membership comes up on the first of the month, well then just go down to your gym where it says gym and it's a debit order, so down we go, there's gym, the amount allocated was 200 and that comes off on the first of the month, so we need to go and show it in our account here. Doesn't have to be in date order or anything, but we just mustn't miss any payments that go through here. So this was gym and it was 200. So now in our bank account we have 95 left, but if we go back to our month, we're still getting our green button here because we've taken it off here and we've taken it off in our bank account. And then we go and we spend something more on groceries, and this amount is now, just to make it easy, we spent 65, and that was cash again, and it was at Woolworths. Okay, so if you want a description, so we've spent that, and we now need to take it off our cash, because our cash is no longer 965. We've just spent 65, so it's now 900, and again we get our green button here. Okay, so this is how you need to run your budget on a daily basis. This here tells you what you spent on your budget. You've so far spent 35% of your total budget. It's just not really any use. It just gives you an indication of where you are. There's a section over here where you can do some workings. So if you wanted to just put in a couple of numbers here and add them up or anything like that, it's just a little working section. If you don't have to use it, but it's there for convenience. And you would go on like that, putting in your different costs as you go along. As soon as you pay your electricity bill, for example, I'll just give you another one. We've allocated 1200, so there we go. We just put in 1200. Okay, it's gone. We don't have any more left, so it's showing you that we have nothing left. And then remember, we just got to go back here, and we've got to put in that we paid that, and that was our electricity bill, and it was, what was it? Trying to remember now. Suddenly drawing a blank. It was 1200. So in our bank account, minus 1200, and we should be all green if we go back to our months, and we are green. Okay, just a little bit something that you can do, which you can manipulate this a little bit. If, for example, you on your entertainment, you go out one night and it costs you, let's say 1200 for a meal or something like that. So you would then go to the entertainment. You've got a budget of 1000. You've overspent on that. So you can then say, okay, my entertainment, I've allocated 1000. It's now gone, but I went over by 200, so I need to take that 200 from somewhere else, and this is where it's going to stop you overspending. So unfortunately, it's going to come off my daily spending. I've overspent, so I'm going to have less for my cokes and coffees and pies and things like that. So I'm going to go to daily spending, and that extra 200, I'm going to allocate it there, and I'm going to say here, over on entertainment. Okay, so way of just sort of manipulating it, and by also stopping yourself from going over, because you might just go over on something and there's nothing you can do about it, but then take that extra that you've spent and put it into another category. Okay, but now obviously we need to show that we have spent this 1200 at some restaurant. So we can say we went to Fancy Foods because it was really expensive and it cost us 12, and that was on the 8th of the 8th 23. Okay, now we go back to our month, and you will see again we are all balancing on the green here. Okay, I hope this is all making some sense to you. If it's not, you are more than welcome to drop me a mail or something, and if you have any specific questions on how this is working. But you can now see that at this stage of the month we have 8,000 exactly left to spend. We have 900 in cash, and we've got 71 in our bank. Okay, so there's our 8,000 made up there, and we just carry on putting in our expenses here. Just another quick shortcut: if you have already put in one of these amounts, you don't have to look it up on the drop down. You can just type in GR for groceries or ET for entertainment. There you are, it just picks it up. If you type in the first few letters, it just makes it a bit quicker. Okay, and it won't allocate anything until you put in an actual number here. And then just remember, you need to always reconcile. Either it comes off your cash or it comes off your actual account. Okay, so I hope that's all making sense. I hope you think you can actually get out there and start using this. There's just one more thing I'd like to show you. and that is how to reconcile your account against your bank account. So if this is our bank account and we print out a statement during the course of the month, we can see on the statement that we can see this amount, we can see this amount, but we can't see this amount and maybe this let's say that grocery amount there. So what we do is we say, yes, can we see this on our bank? We put in a Y there, and just give me a second, because this is now doing a bit of a calculation and it's doing a what if scenario. And yes, we can see that because that is a deposit that went in right in the beginning. It is showing on our bank account, so we can put a Y there for that one. And yes, we can see that one as well. We can see that one. We can see that one. Okay, that one we spent yesterday and it's not showing, so we can't see that one. Yes, we can see that because it's almost instant. It was a cash withdrawal. The gym went through as a debit order. We can see that on our bank statement, and we can see that one. This one we can't see. It hasn't gone through yet. So we know that our bank balance at this particular time, the real balance, because these things are going to go through, is 7.1. And that's what we need to have showing on our monthly budget, because we don't want to be behind or missing anything. But our bank statement that we've just printed out should show this figure, because these two items have yet to go through the bank. So now we know that everything's fine. Our bank statement is right. It's just that we are maybe one step ahead because it hasn't actually hit our account yet, for want of a better term. When we then print out the next statement, because we'll have a few more items, we can see, oh yes, that's now gone through, so we can go there and put a Y. Yes, that's gone through, and yes, we can see that one as well. And maybe we didn't do any more transactions, so now our bank statement actually is the same as our account. But this is a way of reconciling your bank statement. So just go through it, put a yes next to it if it's gone through. If it hasn't, then you've got two different figures, but your real figure is this one. And exactly the same scenario happens on your savings account. So if you want to do a recon, same thing here, just put a Y next to anything that's gone in. It can be a deposit or a withdrawal. Put a yes there and you'll get a balance here, which is as per your bank statement. Okay, I'm hoping this is all making sense and is going to really help you going forward. Thanks for watching, and all the best. I hope you manage to use this, and I hope it makes a huge difference to you. And please, go to our website. This is not the only thing we do. We'll have lots of tips on how to save money, how to do things differently, and it would be great to have you on board. So thanks for watching.